talk about telling stories. And when you're selling, never sell features. Sell the benefits that they're going to get from those features and tell it in the form of a story. Now, I want you to think back to when you were a little kid and you go up to your dad or your mom and say, tell me a story. And they would sit you on their lap, and they would tell you this wonderful, fanciful story, and your eyes would get all big, and your mouth would hang open, so you're like, wow. And we still do it each and every day. When you watch the TV, what are you watching? You're watching stories. You're watching the same stories repeated again and again and again. What happens when you're listening to a story? The suspension of disbelief is there. And so you're going to have a greater tendency to believe what is happening through there. Also, we're entertained by stories. We can process information in the form of a story a lot better and a lot easier than if we're just given a spec sheet. And some of the engineering types out there will say, give me a spec sheet, don't give me any rah-rah, I just want to know the facts. For those people, wonderful, give them a spec sheet. For those other people, like 95% of the population, you want to have the spec sheet there, but you also want to be able to go ahead and tell them, this is a story about a person just like you, and here's how the features gave them these benefits. And I think it'll do the same for you. Real quick story. One time, we were teaching a real estate seminar out in Colorado Springs, and all around the room, we had these 8.5 by 11 frames. We had a picture, black and white picture in there with the address and a picture of a house. And when people first got there, they were looking around, they're saying, what are all of these? And as we were doing the seminar, we'd say, I want to go ahead and tell you a story about how we bought the property at 110100 McClellan Drive. And then we tell the story about how we found this couple, and they had inherited this money, they built this beautiful house, and then they couldn't make the payments, and they're about to lose it, but we went ahead, and instead of having them lose the house and lose all of their credit, we went ahead and took it over in a lease option, were able to go ahead and make the payments, and when we sold it, we were going to go ahead and be able to completely take them out of that situation where they wouldn't have their credit ruined. And oh, by the way, on our part, we had an $80,000 contracted profit on the back end. When you start telling stories like that, when you start to go ahead and show people, this is what happens, this is what we did with this house, this is what we did with that house, this is what we did with this house, and we can do it with this one, we can do it with yours too. Suddenly what happens is people say, wow, and our credibility went up through the roof. Little point of interest, instead of putting push pins in the wall to go ahead and hold those pictures, we got some of those little holders that had the glue. It was a really cold day, and we put them up there ahead of time, and as the day warmed up, the glue became less and less sticky, and they started falling off. So you might want to go ahead and not do it that way. But what happened was, each one of those pictures was a story, was a deal, and if someone during one of the questions and answer sessions said, tell me about this house over here, I'm glad you asked. And we had a story for every one of those houses, every one of those pictures. Now, when you're a little kid, all the stories were make-believe, usually. Here, when you're selling, the story not only has to be true, you had to be able to back up what you said. And so if you tell a story that someone's going to save money, it's going to be faster, easier, whatever, you have to go ahead and remove the risk and do a risk reversal. So this is where you give them satisfaction guaranteed. Try it for 5 days. If you don't like it, bring it back. No money out of your pocket. We'll go ahead and return your money. Do something that not only tells a story, but also says, we guarantee you're going to be so happy with this that if you don't have, and then articulate the benefit that they'll receive, if you're not 100% happier with this product than you were with anything else, bring it back, we'll refund your money, and we'll pay your shipping costs. We'll pay your cost for your gas for bringing it back. When you do that, what have you just done? You've lowered the risk for someone to go ahead and buy your product. And so a person is always saying, gosh, I really want to do that, I really want to do that, I really want to do that, but what if they're lying? What if it's not as good as they claim? What if? And by just articulating the risk reversal, you've just gone ahead and lowered the risk for them to go ahead and try this, and that go ahead and increase your sales an extra 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%, sometimes even more. Now, why is that important? Because what's the difference between having an increase in sales of 10%, 20%, 30%, 500%? Well, the product is pretty much the same. However, the way that you articulate the product, the way that you articulate the story, changes people's perception of it. And when suddenly people say, you know, I'd really like to have that, and there's no risk to me, now what you've done is you combine the story with a reason for them to believe the story, and you've given them a risk reversal so there's no way they can lose if they go ahead and take you up on the offer, and you'll increase your sales. Why not try it?